$20 an hour. You see it on job postings all the time, right? But what does that number really mean for your bank account when it's all said and done? Well, today, we're going to break it all down, from the big annual salary to the cash you actually have left for groceries.
So yeah, that's the big question we're tackling. First, we're going to look at those big, satisfying numbers, your gross pay, from the whole year right down to the week. Then, we'll get real about what you actually take home after Uncle Sam gets his cut. Let's get right into it.
Okay, first up, the big picture. Let's figure out the gross pay. And remember, this is your starting point before any deductions are taken out.
If you're working a standard 40-hour week at $20 an hour, that adds up to an annual salary of $41,600. This is your headline number, the one you'll use for big picture planning, like applying for a loan or setting those long-term savings goals.
So how do we get to that number? It's actually really simple math. We just take that $20 hourly wage, multiply it by a standard 40-hour work week, and then multiply that by the 52 weeks in a year. See? No magic, it's just the numbers.
But let's be honest, most of us don't really budget our lives annually. We live month to month, paycheck to paycheck. So let's break that big number down into something that makes more sense for your actual budget. On a monthly basis, your gross income is about $3,466. Now, this is a key number. This is what you'll use to figure out, hey, can I afford that apartment or handle a car payment and all your other big bills that pop up every month.
Okay, let's get even more real. Did you know that over 70% of workers here in the US get paid every 2 weeks? For most people, this is the real rhythm of their financial lives. So what does that check actually look like?
Every 2 weeks, you can expect to see $1,600 in gross pay hit your account. This is probably one of the most important figures to know, since it's what dictates your spending and saving until that next payday rolls around. And just to break it down one final step, for that weekly budget, for stuff like groceries, gas, and whatever you've got planned for the weekend,
You're looking at a gross income of $800 a week. Simple, clear. But, and this is a big but, these have all been the before numbers.
all right, we've seen all the big, shiny gross pay numbers. They look pretty good, right? But now it is time for the reality check. Let's talk about what you actually get to keep. This is the question that matters most, isn't it? After federal, state, and maybe even local taxes, plus other deductions are taken out, what is your real take-home pay?
This really puts it into perspective. On average, you can expect taxes to take a bite of somewhere between 18 to 30% of your paycheck. That's a pretty big chunk. It means you're really only taking home about 70 to 82% of all that gross pay we just calculated.
So let's translate that into real dollars. Your $41,600 a year, well, that becomes closer to $32,000 to $35,000. Your monthly income is more like $2,600 to $2,900. And that $800 week, it's actually about $600 to $680. This is the money you actually have to work with. So now we have our real take-home pay. But what that money can actually buy depends almost entirely on one single thing: where you live. Because as you're about to see, location is everything.
I mean, this is the reality of cost of living. In a place like Ohio or Texas, a take-home pay in the low 30s can absolutely afford you a comfortable lifestyle. But if you're in New York or California, that exact same salary can pretty much disappear into rent, leaving you with very little for anything else.
So, what's the big takeaway here? For a single person, $20 an hour is generally considered a livable wage. But, and this is a huge but, it really depends on you being in a state with a reasonable cost of living. Your zip code is a massive factor in how far your money goes. But what if you want to do more than just get by? What if you want to supercharge those earnings? Well, let's talk about a really powerful tool you have at your disposal: overtime. So here's the deal. Federal rules say that for most hourly jobs, your employer has to pay you time and a half for any hours you work over 40 in a single week. So for you, at $20 an hour, your overtime rate jumps to a very, very appealing $30 an hour. Let's just see this in action, okay? Say you work an extra 10 hours one week. Your regular 40 hours gets you that base $800. Then, those 10 overtime hours at $30 an hour add an extra $300 on top. So your total gross pay for that week? A cool $1,100. You can really see the power of those extra hours here. Just 10 hours of overtime boosts your weekly gross pay by nearly 40%. That's a massive increase. And it's how you can really take control of your earnings without having to go find a whole new job.
So let's do one final recap of the gross numbers we started with, just to lock it in. From that $20 an hour, we get to $800 a week, $1,600 biweekly, and finally that $41,600 annual salary. Just remember, these are your starting points.
So there you have it, a complete breakdown of a $20 an hour wage. We've seen the gross numbers, we've faced the after-tax reality, and we've seen how much location and overtime can change the game. The numbers are on the table, so the only question left is, how are you going to make them work for you?